Hey, I'm Max. Welcome to another video. Today I want to walk you through how to debug a cloud application program model for Java application running on SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry in Visual Studio Code. If you haven't started with CAP yet, I've put two links in the description. The first one is a tutorial about how to get started with CAP Java, and the second one is a GitHub repository with a sample application which you could simply clone and get started directly. So let's get started and clone the repository. And open it in VS Code. The first thing we need to do in order to be able to run and debug the project, we need to compile it, right? Therefore, bring up a terminal and give it a second. And maybe clean install should compile the project at least. Don't forget to execute the command whenever it's needed. So for example, if you've changed something in your CDS files, etc., maybe clean install will also generate the according classes. So the next step in order to be able to deploy the app to SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry is that we need to deploy our database artifacts to SAP HANA in SAP Cloud Platform. Therefore, there's only one command you need to know. It's cds deploy -- to HANA. So once this is done, we are able to deploy the application to SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. Therefore, we need a deployment descriptor, a so-called manifest.yaml file, in which we define what Cloud Foundry should actually do. The application should get a name in Cloud Foundry. In my case, it's a test app. It will get a URL, a so-called route. In my case, I don't want to define a particular URL, but Cloud Foundry should generate a random route, so I have no overlaps with other applications. And what artifact Cloud Foundry should actually run? It's the created jar file, as well as the information of which service Cloud Foundry should bind to my application. In our case, it's the service to my HDI container, which CDS deployed to HANA created recently. Therefore, let's have a look how the service name looks like. CF services will give you the services in your Cloud Foundry space, and copy over the service name. And we are good to go. Two final things before we can actually deploy the application is, first we need to define which Spring profile Cloud Platform should use. Therefore, let's have a look at my application properties, where we've defined three profiles. The first one is Cloud, the second one is SQLite, and the third one is a default one. The default one and the SQLite one are both pointing to a SQLite database, but we want to connect to a HANA database in SAP Cloud Platform. That's why we use the profile Cloud. We haven't defined any database parameters here, but CAP Java knows automatically once the Cloud profile is running, it needs to connect to the bound service, which is a HDI container. And the second one is the variable for activating the debug mode, which is jbp config debug, and that one needs to be enabled. And then we are good to go and can finally push the application to SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. During the application startup, we can see which port was enabled for debugging. Here it's the port 8000, but until now we don't have access to this port of my application running in SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. Therefore, we need to enable SSH and port forwarding. My app is called test app, so I enable SSH for my app. And to make that setting effective, we also need to restage the application. Next, we can enable port forwarding for attaching the debugger to the port 8000 in Cloud Foundry. Therefore, let's use cfssh and the according ports plus host to connect to the port. If you want to know more about the command, we can have a look at the documentation. -n doesn't execute a remote command. -t disables pseudo tty allocation, and -l is actually the local port forward specification. So we can now finally configure our debugger. Therefore, let's go to the class which is responsible for starting up the Spring Boot application, which is the application.java file. Go to your debug mode and click on create a launch JSON file, which is the file for VS Code to tell how it should run and debug applications. And I created the default configuration for my Java application and the class I've just went to. We don't want to launch a debugger, we want to attach to one project, and therefore we have a host, which is the local host, and we have a port 8000, which corresponds to the setting I've done via cfssh. Perfect. If we rename the configuration and run it, we should finally be able to attach to my project running in SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. And the orange line on the bottom tells us that we are connected. We already get a call stack. And now we are able to debug the application. Therefore, we will set a breakpoint and the catalog service handler in the method discount books. And we also check out the URL for the application and actually access the application. If we now go to books, my debugger should stop over here in the discount books method. Here we go, my debugger stops, and now we are able to navigate through the code with the toolbar we have in VS Code. If you have any questions, recommendations, feedback, whatever it is, let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, thanks for watching and see you next time.